Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Dakota Lasky. What is going on, my friend? How you doing?
Not too much, man. We just wrapped up recording an episode of the Zelda Cast,
Yeah.
which I don't know if I was stealing your thunder revealing that, but we just
Nope.
did that. So, yeah, I was a little more low key for that one. Now I feel like I'm ready to talk some Metroid, so I'm ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a nice weekend, nice and chill. Um, got some little gaming to do, a little apartment cleaning to do. The weather, it was warm recently, like it was like 80 or 90 degrees recently, and then it like got super cold again. And it was like kind of 40, 50-ish. Not
Yeah.
super cold, but drastically colder. And now it's been like slowly creeping its way back up here where I am in the Northeast. So yeah, not doing too bad. Been making sure I get all my allergy medicine in me because my allergies been
Oh my God,
uh
man. I've been
yeah, I know
dying.
you know. I know
Dying.
you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
I'm
but
I'm
yeah,
with you
otherwise
too.
I've been doing good, doing all right.
I can't remember. You got three New York teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs right
Yes,
now, but
yes,
I can't remember which
yes.
one is your team. I don't think it's Jersey, right? Even though you live in Jersey.
No, I'm a Devils fan. Yeah.
Were you, I thought you were an Island. I thought Islanders was like your
So,
top.
well, first of all, yeah, it is great to be a New York, New Jersey sports fan at the moment across many different sports, but yeah, specifically for hockey. So, I grew up a Devils and an Islanders fan because I was a Devils fan because I was a Marty Brodeur guy. I grew
Yeah.
up playing goalie. He was, I looked up to him. But I lived on Long Island, so I went to Islanders games. So I was also an Islanders fan. If I
Mm.
had to choose between them, like if they were playing each other, I rooted for the Devils. But
Okay.
separately, like I like them both. If the Devils lose to the Rangers, screw the Rangers. If the Devils lose, I'm rooting for the Islanders. But the Islanders, I think they're not looking great.
It's tough.
Islander, I don't
I,
think they're
I
looking
think
great
all of them
either.
are at 2-1 right now. I think so. It's not doing too bad, dude. At least your team is in the
The
playoffs. My team is
I,
not.
I mean, yeah, but like the devil, I mean, yeah, the last game, I think Hurricanes Islanders was 5-2. The Devils game, that was a 5-1, 5-2 back earlier this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3-1 Carolina right now against the Islanders, which not a big
That's
fan of.
that's tough. That's
And then
tough.
Devils Rangers is only 2-1. Oh, Devils won yesterday. Oh, I
Yeah.
gotta okay. I didn't catch that game. I should have watched that. I watched the previous two games, and I
Mm.
didn't watch yesterday's game, of course. Okay, they won an OT. That's great. Okay, well, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen that, but awesome. Okay, so we're in it.
Yeah.
So it's not over just yet. It's not Jover, but still got some work to do. But yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I can't remember a time when all the teams. I can't remember a time when the Devils, Rangers, and Islanders have all been in the playoffs in
Nope.
forever, especially a Devils Rangers playoff game. I mean, the fact that we might see, let's say the Islanders beat the Hurricanes, the fact that we could potentially see an Islanders versus Rangers or Islanders versus Devils round two playoff game is actually crazy to me and something I might not be able to miss. I'm going to have to maybe get tickets for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
crazy in the hockey world. Excited. Hopefully, the Devils bring it back.
It's pretty disappointing over in this neck of the woods. Our team missed the playoffs. Our GM left us. It's no good over here. It's tough. It's a tough time to be a Calgary Flames fan, and you've got
That's
Connor
rough.
McDavid up in Edmonton. Who just I hope I would even see the Leafs win before I would see the Oilers win. That's how much I dislike the Oilers. But yeah. Anyways, that's what's going on in the world of hockey. It is good to be a New York hockey fan right now. I'm
It
sure
is.
you're
It's
eating
good.
well.
And yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to look at the recap after this show and then look forward to the next game. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So if you are a listener only of Omega Metroid, you should check out the Zelda Cast, which will be released by the time that you're listening to this. Dak and Lilith stopped by to fill in for my co-host Allison, who is away, and we had a cool conversation just about kind of like Zelda in general, but obviously focused in a little bit on Tears of the Kingdom, and we were
I felt like such a Debbie Downer because you're like,
you know.
what do you think about this game? Like, it looks okay. Like, what do you think about this game? I think it looks all right.
but like that's kind of the thing is like, so I myself, like, I have felt like that for the last like couple months now because yeah, like there is something missing from Tears of the Kingdom. Like, and I think we all kind of feel it, or like all kind of, like I think you used the word X factor. Like, what does it have that gives it that like that's what I need to, and I think it was
Yeah.
missing that for a long time. And if you were to tell me that it's still missing that, I wouldn't even necessarily disagree with you, because it's been a weird road to get to this game, which comes out in about 3 weeks. So
Yeah, I think, and maybe I didn't get this across in the show, and I hope I did. I think it was more so for me too, is that I think it needs that little thing to push me over the edge, because I'm still not convinced. Like, is it going to have awesome dungeons? Is it going to have an
yeah,
awesome story? So like,
yeah.
if it had those things and those were clear to me, I'd be like, I'm all set, I'm in. But there's some things I'm still not keyed into just yet, so
I
I'm
didn't think that
still
anything you
holding my
said was
tongue.
like unfair or like Debbie Downer. I admit I kind of felt that way for the last couple weeks too, just being constantly just like, oh, like what's going on with this game? When are we gonna see something? When are we gonna know something? And
Yeah.
that the last trailer went a long way towards correcting that,
Mhm.
but still, I think there's definitely questions that need to be answered. Like, are dungeons coming back, or do you have to do shrines again, or Korok's back? Like, it's questions that probably should get answers are clearly not going to now up until the game comes out. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But yeah, check that out if you want our thoughts on that. Okay, so we're talking about how good New York hockey fans have been eating lately. How about how good Metroid fans have been eating lately? Because I think
Whew,
that we're still riding.
eating good.
Yeah, we're still on the upward trend here, I feel like. And
Mhm.
Metroid Prime Remastered, even still Metroid Dread a little bit, but Metroid Fusion, which we kind of haven't spent as much time talking about, because we did a whole slew of episodes on Metroid Fusion for its 20th anniversary back in December. But
Mhm.
we're going to revisit Metroid Fusion today and we're going to jump back into the world of mapping Metroid, which is a favorite of mine here on this show, because we really get to go like in depth, granular into some of these areas that on the surface level might not have a whole lot going on to them, but once you peel back the layer, there's a lot of cool stuff, and Metroid Fusion is certainly no different in that regard. And today on the docket, we got what might be my favorite sector, actually, Sector 4. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. So obviously, as we all know, Metroid Fusion re-released on the Nintendo Switch back in March on the expansion pass,
Hmm.
right? So and now it's available for even more people who and I'm interested. It would be interesting to see like how many people actually jump into Fusion who have never played it before, or maybe are picking up at the
I,
first
I
time
know
or have played
of
it.
at least a few people.
Yeah. And then just in general, like how many people are buying it or playing it on Nintendo Switch. But yeah, Fusion's been out for the Switch for about a month, I think, around a month ish.
Hmm.
So I think it makes sense for us to jump back into Fusion. Obviously, we dealt with Metroid Prime Remastered, and then we talked about Metroid 2. We did a little retrospect for a little bit. We've talked about the movie, we did some music talk. We jumped around here and there since then, and
Hmm.
we didn't really we talked about Metroid Fusion like you said along the anniversary, but we never really jumped into Fusion again once it got re-released on the Switch. So yeah, I think it's a good I guess opportunity to jump back into my favorite 2D Metroid game.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to talk about it again and to do a mapping Metroid, as you said, for one of another favorite of my sections, a favorite of yours,
Yeah.
a great section overall, one of the better in the games. So yeah, excited to jump into this and excited to talk about some Metroid Fusion, because now both Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime, my two favorite Metroid games, are now on the Nintendo Switch, which is awesome.
Which
So
is
why
great.
not talk about one of them?
Yeah, I was actually thinking. So I just said that this was one of my favorite sectors, and I was almost wondering, like, is this my favorite? And I think we in the Discord we posted a couple weeks ago. We were kind of ranking the sectors, and I feel like most of them, like I feel like there's not like a clear runaway best one and a clear runaway worst one. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but like I think that this, if it's not my favorite, it would probably be my second favorite, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But which I guess we'll dive into here. But I don't know. What would you do? You think this one is like your upper echelon of the sectors, top maybe towards bottom? Do you think that that's true? Like I feel like they're all kind of on like almost the same tier. Maybe there's one that's like lower than the others, but like I feel like the fusion sectors are mostly fairly similar.
Yeah, you can make an argument that like the ship itself is like in a sector, and
Hmm.
maybe that isn't up to par with like, which I don't agree with, but like maybe you could argue that. Yeah, I definitely think all the sectors there really isn't like a standout like really bad one or really good one. I think they're all really solid sectors. I do
Yeah.
think this is one of the better ones though. I also like the Nocturne one. I forgot which sector that is
Sector
specifically.
6. Yeah.
Sector six.
That
Yeah,
one's cool.
that's a really cool one. That's one of my favorite ones. And then like maybe Sector 3 might be on the lower end for me, but maybe not. I'm not like I don't think there are any of ones that like oh yeah, that one's on the lower end for me, but they're
Right.
definitely more standout ones than others, but even then I think all of them are so good in a group that it's hard to necessarily pick one or like I never really thought about like which one is necessarily my favorite. I love the ice one as well.
Yeah.
Um
I
the
was
one
about
that
to
I
jump
wrote.
on you there for a second when you said Sector 3, because I was going to say, I think if I were to rate any of them, maybe slightly towards the end, it would be Sector 3 for me. But yeah,
Yeah.
like they are like, not to say that they're same, like gameplay wise, like they're not, but like in terms of quality wise, like I feel like they're all pretty, like they're all
They're
really
all really
solid.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
really good. And this is definitely a really good one. And I'm glad that we're jumping into this one. I would love to go into the all I hope eventually we get to do all the sectors
Yeah.
for
I think
Fusion.
we will, including the
Eventually.
main deck, which is an underrated part of Metroid Fusion 2. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so okay, well let's hit it. Let's talk about Sector 4, which is the Aqua sector, and I guess we'll kind of start as we usually do with just the layout of this area. And the first thing that immediately comes to my mind is this sector is very unique in that it is the only sector that you start and you go from right to left, which doesn't seem like that big of a departure, but like when every single other sector you go start from left to right, whereas this one just immediately feels a little bit more unique and a little bit more, I guess, like disorientating almost in a way because of the different direction that you're going. So it like immediately without doing anything, it stands out right away.
Cool. I just got some Taco Bell from my roommate. Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Um yeah, so well the right to left aspect for sure. I think honestly probably the part that stands out to me the most is how sectioned off it is because you have the upper half and the lower half. One is obviously full of water, the other one isn't. But you also
Hmm.
have an entire like you're trying to lower the water at first just to like get rid of the electrified part of the water, right?
Yeah.
And then you're actually getting into like the lower bottom area, which is almost like a big fish tank, really. Um, which gives you some really awesome visuals there. So, yeah, I like the right to left aspect. It definitely kind of feels like you're getting to like another corner of the ship almost, even though all the sectors are on like a rotator. So I
Hmm.
guess that's not really the case, like rotating around like that central spine of the station, but
Yeah.
or the ship. But yeah, that's definitely a cool aspect of it. The right to left part, and then the section, like just the sectioning of how the electrified water and the overall like entirely submerged part of the map kind of gives you a layered adventure there because you got to go at it in different ways. Eventually,
Hmm.
you come back into it from Sector 5, and that's how you get into like the fish tanky kind of part of area of the area. So that's really cool as well. Which Fusion does great. Like I love how like it intertwines all the different sectors with like the hidden parts of the map that you end up exploring. And Sector 4 has parts of that with the underneath fish tank area.
Yeah.
But yeah, the right to left part is cool too. I love the overall layout of it, and in those kinds of ways, they did a really good job of making this area feel more unique to like Meridia and the wrecked ship from Super
Hmm.
Metroid, which are similar, obviously, because they're water based from the previous game, but they did a good job with Sector 4 making it feel unique and not kind of a copy paste of those.
I think so too, and I think the thing that really sticks out for me, making it unique, is like I think you immediately kind of think of Meridia the first time that you play this, or at least you do if you've played Super Metroid first. I'm thinking about when I played it the first time it came out, and Meridia is kind of like dark, dank, like muddy, whereas Sector 4 is like very bright and very vibrant and very like I almost want to say like happy looking. Like it's got like some really bright colored coral leaf, and
Okay,
it looks
interesting.
it just looks like really it looks really cool and like really just like
It's
tropical almost.
mesmerizing, I think, to
Yeah.
me. Mesmerizing, I think, is a great word for it, because you have that first, like the main upper area, like that awesome like metallic kind of background. You see the big wires going up along it, and then when
Hmm.
you get to like towards the more underneath parts, especially like the fish tank area, and you can see those big coral reefs in the background, which is great.
Yeah.
Which I love, by the way, those areas. And so, some of them have like these big blocks in the way, but a lot of them are just like these see-through like tank areas almost, where you just have this metal geometric kind of rectangular edge to the room to kind of essentially the outline of the room, with this huge like coral reef background setting in the backdrop. Looks awesome, looks
Yeah.
great. It's absolutely beautiful, and yeah, it matches up to Super Metroid, which has those like classic backgrounds that are so just
I
so
think
mesmerizing.
this is probably like the just in terms of like sprite work, Game Boy graphics. Like I think Sector 4 is probably like the coral part is probably the best looking portion of the game, arguably. Like
Mm.
it looks so
Definitely up there,
vibrant and
100%.
so just alive. It looks very very
Mhm.
cool, and it's a kind of a stark contrast to like you mentioned like the metallic kind of straightforward path that you take at the very beginning of the
Mhm.
sector when you get to the pump control room. So I think that's like it's really cool how like you can like almost peel back the layers and like the bottom half is almost hidden. It's almost like you're not supposed to get there.
Yeah.
And of course you do get there, which is also unique because I want to say that the lower level is the first level or the first section in Metroid Fusion really that you need to get to from another sector. Mostly, I guess you
Yes.
could say you kind of when
Well,
the foliage happens, you kind of get to
yeah,
the
the
main deck
vegetation.
or from
Yeah.
yeah from the main deck to sector 2. But like this one, it feels like very like hidden off, and that's kind of the part of the game too where you start to really deviate from the path that Adam sends you on and explore a little bit more for yourself. So it's very cool thematically, and it's cool how they like work that layout wise into like the story too. I've always really liked that about it.
Yeah, the visual storytelling, and there's a lot of that in this sector just beyond this too. But how the peeling back of the layers is so perfect. Like you're clearly not supposed to be in this area,
Hmm.
and you kind of like, it's almost a little bit of a twist too, because at the beginning you're like, okay, my objective here is to like lower the water, get rid of the electrified water so I can progress. But in actuality, there's even a layer beneath that you end up having to get through, which you come back to later. And that different intertwining of paths that you take through all these sectors, Fusion just flourishes with that. So really love that little bit of it. And yeah, it kind of gives you that feeling of you're eventually going to get to some areas where you're going to uncover stuff that you weren't expecting to see, like at a first glance. And
Hmm.
that's very much what this area is about, because the two different areas look so different. Like one is so man-made and artificial, and the other one, even though it is artificial, it looks so natural. It has this fish tanky like kind of real coral reef aspect to it, which is literally what it is. It essentially is a fish tank for them
Yeah.
to like work with all of these marine organisms, which we'll talk about later. And you get to kind of traverse that, which is a fun take on it too, because like we talked about Meridian, the wrecked ship. Like, okay, you go through your classic like um ship, watery area. You have like a ship that's crash landed, which is cool. It's kind of like spooky in nature. And this one, it's like, okay, we're recreating. You're literally just going through like an aquarium essentially,
Hmm.
and it's a nice little spin on that. So yeah, I really like how it has those layers. It has, even within the sector, has very distinct and diverse sections and subsections of it that lend to not only making the area feel more diverse, but also contributing to the overall storytelling of the game.
Yeah, it's I think of any sector in Metroid Fusion, it's very much the one that's like it feels like there's almost like two separate parts of it. Like the aesthetic in most of the other sectors more or less stays sort of the same, with some deviations here and there. Maybe Sector 1 is the outlier there, but like I feel like this one like really like has like two very distinct parts, which gives it a little bit more legs, I guess, for me too, and a little bit makes it a little bit more interesting.
I actually feel like that's a strength that a lot of the sectors in the game have. There are a lot of, I mean, even like with the vegetate, like the whole sequence with like the huge vegetation, like how it goes from just like having an area that's like greener and like more mossy and just like covered with vines to like you getting deeper, and it goes to like this moldy, like gross, like undergrowth area. Like I feel like every part of the game kind of lends to sending you to different areas that grow as you progress through them. Or even when you're dealing with the box robot, right? How it like destroys sections of the map that you end up traversing through. The SAX does the same thing. Fusion does a really good job overall of keeping each area feeling dynamic and changing over time, either through just being like a layered area or literally actual changes in the game happen to it in order for you to traverse it differently. Even with like the elevator sequence earlier in the game where you have to go through the main deck because the
Hmm.
power goes out, right? Like that just gives you another way to explore the same areas and see how they grow and evolve because the story is progressing. And that's a really awesome element of the game that I love.
Yeah, no disagreement there. All right, let's talk about some of our favorite rooms in
Mm.
Sector 4. And like, I feel
Ooh,
like,
ooh, I have one.
do you?
Go
Okay,
ahead,
you
but I
go
have
first.
one.
No, you go first.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about visual storytelling. The room just before you get into the Serris X boss fight room is that tank area where you go through the bones. You see Serris's bones right there, and I love that room. It's obviously it's not like a crazy room or anything, but it's a nice little bit of storytelling there where you're like, oh, that was the actual Serris, and you're going to
I
go
agree.
fight this like reincarnation of it, this corrupted version of it, and you see the bones right there, and then you actually face off against the thing. It's a
Hmm.
nice little like payoff, setup and payoff moment. Really awesome, and kind of lends again to what we were just talking about, the overall like visual storytelling that Fusion does really well,
Yeah,
especially in this part of the game.
I totally agree. I was gonna bring that up when we talked about Ceres, but like that, it's such
Yeah.
a cool moment because it's like
Mhm.
it kind of drives home the fact, and I think it's like really one of the first times that this really drives home that like the actual creature itself is dead and it's long dead and like everything you fight on here is dead. It's
Yep.
just that they are like ex parasites, and I think that like seeing the bones of Ceres like really kind of drives that home because he's like an earlier boss in the game, more or less, and
Yeah.
they like you see Arachnus, but you don't see really a whole lot of evidence of like the real Arachnus or anything like that. You've seen Ridley, but the cutscene where he kind of dissolves hasn't happened yet. So like
Mhm.
I thought it was like such a cool moment where you see the bones and you're just like, is he like is he dead? Like what's going on here? Like am I home free? And of course you're not. So I love that. I love just the Metroid purist in me. I love a good glass tube. Like it makes me smile
Mm.
every single time when you're in the bottom of the aquarium and you're going through the glass tubes, and just makes me think of Meridia, makes me think of Metroid Prime, makes me think like it's just something about it that it's like a proud tradition in Metroid now just to have these like random glass tubes that show up. So I really love that. And one more room that sticks out for me, obviously, because it's the first thing that you do in this sector, but like the pump control room, I think is a pretty cool.
Mm.
It's really more like a hallway actually than a room itself, because like you're on a straight path to get there, but like the way that you have to like deviate and go off course. And I want to say too, this is the first time that Metroid Fusion, like when you're playing the game and you have your map, when you're in a blue part of the map, that's where you're supposed to be, and a green part is like the secret area. And I think this is one of the first times where like you have to go into the green secret areas in order to actually get to where you're going. So I really like that too. I mean, the room itself looks cool, but like
Mhm.
it's pretty neat to like see how Fusion kind of teaches you again a little bit earlier in the game. Like no. Like yes, Adam's gonna tell you where to go, but like you have to go and find how to get there.
Absolutely. And those callbacks to the tubes, I feel like or the references with the tubes, I feel like are callbacks like straight up to Meridia, right? Like
Hmm.
they almost feel like just dropped right in
Yeah.
from that, which I think is great. And there's even one I think where I think it's either a power bomb one or just a straight up um a regular morph ball bomb, but it drops you into this little like drop
The
in
pit
tank.
of death.
Yeah, with that, it has an expansion down there, like a missile expansion. It
Yeah.
has a Aqua Pirate or Aqua's Abusian, whatever it is. And I always remember that room. That's it. That was one I was going to bring up, a distinct
I was gonna
room
bring that
there.
up too. Yeah.
There's that one. There's also the one when I think it's when you first enter the area. Um, there's one room where there's a missile tank expansion all the way in the far right. I think it's below a save station, and there's a bunch of those enemies. I forget what they're called, but they throw those like fire, like flames, like
Yeah,
tongues of fire at you.
I know what you're talking
And
about.
there's like destructible blocks, and it's like a long hallway that you gotta like jump through and like blast the destructible blocks, jump over,
Hmm.
avoid these things. That room always sticks out to me because I always remember as a kid running through that room and hating it and
It's a tough room
constantly
to
getting
do.
hit by those things. Yeah,
Like,
that was always a memorable room to me.
and you can choose to get the expansion later when you have a better beam, and the room is fine at that point. But like before then, it is tough
I
because
always
there's
went
like,
before. I always went first
oh, me
try.
too. Because
Yeah,
there's
have to.
there's got to be like one, two, three, four, five, and they're like they take a couple charge shots each in order to defeat those enemies. And
Mm.
I'll try and look up what they are. But yeah, I remember that room very distinctly, actually.
Yeah, and the blocks are like kind of an awkward position to get
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
And then there's one more room. I have one more room I wanted to point out specifically. There's one where I want to say it's in the bottom half of the map. It's where you have four different morph ball like paths to go through, and
Hmm.
like you would bomb each one. If you have a power bomb, you can clear all of them, but you drop in, you have little different paths to go through.
Yeah.
I always remember the first time I did that because I don't think I either had the power bomb yet or I just didn't do it. And I was like manually checking each one, and like the right one was the last one I picked or whatever it
Of
is.
course. Yeah.
And that whole area actually, I think in my earlier playthroughs as a kid, I found to be difficult was like the bottom part of Sector 4, like the fish tank area. And like a lot of those enemies were in awkward areas. It's a very tight and claustrophobic area with like weird, like shaped rooms and an architecture and like natural elements jutting out. Like there's that like one climb room. It's like a big column that has like rocks jutting out into it. It like that area I found to be kind of more difficult as a kid, so I always remember that area specifically
Hmm.
as from Sector 4, even from Fusion, as just being, especially with like all the weird looking enemies in it, like all the like the weird like deep sea looking creatures that you're like crawling around, like just had some weird vibes to it. Always stood out to me in this game, and especially these areas for sure.
Another thing that comes to my mind too, in that area that you're talking about, which also makes it difficult to traverse, is there's like I don't know what you'd call them exactly, but it's almost like invisible like walls or like wall or a passageway where there's a sprite there.
Yes, you can't see. You're
You can't
supposed to
see
go
it,
through it, but
yeah.
it doesn't look like it. Yes, yes, yep.
Which is a huge callback to Meridia because those are everywhere in Meridia,
Mhm.
which makes it again very difficult to traverse. But it's not as intense in Sector 4, but there's definitely some times where like you have to roll through somewhere that and it looks
Mhm.
like you cannot roll through it. So it
Yeah,
does make navigation confusing.
there's even one. I think it's like a vertical drop, but that there's a little ledge there that you can't see, and you have to morph
Yeah.
ball like and catch it and roll in. And I remember distinctly looking for that for a long time the first time, and finally finding that. Yeah, oh, good times, good times, good times.
Another prominent room as well in here. This is where you unlock level 4. This is where you unlock the last of the doors that are holding you
Mhm.
back from getting to all of the ship's secrets, which the ship has many secrets. So pretty cool. And again, we kind of mentioned it earlier too, but like the cool thing about the level 4 lock room is like you have to come from Sector 5, which I think makes it even more engaging because like you're really not supposed to find it, and Adam clearly does not want you unlocking level 4 locks, and it does feel pretty rewarding when you can get there. And I guess it's a good time to mention too, but like um you can also, and this maybe is more so in the lore side of things, but like once you what is it before you get the level 4 locks or after, either way, so like you can unlock the secret scene as well, and get that
Oh
hidden
yeah.
Easter egg scene with Adam and the mystery man conversing about Samus's shine
Mhm.
sparking abilities and all that fun stuff. So which is pretty cool as well, and it also gives a little bit of extra cachet to Sector 4, and makes me at least spend a lot more time than I usually would in that sector trying to like get the shine spark. Don't die, don't not here. So yeah, it's an awesome sector full of like very cool rooms. Lots for such a small sector. It really does have like a lot of, I think, quite memorable locations to it.
Yeah. Speaking of that security room there, which unlocks the level 4 doors, I was just thinking about this. before we went live, like how does that room like even get there, and like how do you access that normally? Like imagine you're like the guy who working on the B.S.L. and you're like, we got to go to that room, and you got to like put on your like deep sea diving equipment in order
Hmm.
to get to
Yeah.
the security room. Like it's when you think about it from a logical perspective, like it's that would be the worst one to get to. And then I think eventually now with all like I mean literally you would have to swim through like actual fish tanks unless there's some room or doorway or hallway that can get you there, in which case I wonder why Samus didn't take it. But like I would hate to be the person who like installed that room or had to like maintain it before all of this went down, because it is in quite the inconvenient location on the ship.
That's putting it mildly for sure. So I just
Yeah.
fact checked myself as well. So you do unlock this after getting level 4 security lock unlocked, but you have to do it
Mhm.
before you get the diffusion missiles, which happen kind of right after the other. So you got to do it like right there, right then. And
Okay.
I think it's probably the hardest shine sparking puzzle in Metroid. Like just in general, like I can't think of a single shine spark puzzle that is more difficult than this one.
And the most worthwhile,
I mean,
I
I think
think.
so.
I think. Yeah.
Like you don't I've kind of said this before on the show, but it's like there does come a point where it's like, do I really need that last missile? Do I really need the last power bomb? Like probably not, but like for such a unique reward where it's just like this is something, the
Hmm.
reward is unlike anything you've seen in Metroid, so it makes the puzzle that precedes it feel appropriate.
That's interesting because I feel like between the two of us, you've always been more of the completionist when
Yeah.
it comes to Metroid. But since Metroid Prime Remastered came out, I've done two 100% runs on it, and now I feel like anytime I play the game, I have to go. If I'm not going for a speed run, I have to 100% it. So now, when I didn't do it on this my last playthrough, but like I feel like just because of like time constraints, but
Hmm.
if I next time I play Fusion, like I'm gonna go for 100%. And it's interesting that now I'm just more interested in completing Metroid games 100%, just like that interest has been revitalized in me. Whereas you are now saying, "Oh, I don't care about early completion. Like I don't really need to like go and get that last one."
Well,
Um,
no,
in this scenario,
it's not that like I'm gonna 100% basically any Metroid game I play, but there
Mhm.
comes a point where like you're doing it to get 100% rather than because you need
Yeah,
like a missile or you need a power bomb, right? Like, and I think
yes,
that like
yes,
the more unique the rewards are, the more it's just like it kind of drives you beyond
oh,
just like wanting to get 100%. Which I mean, like
that I
there's
agree
usually
with.
rewards for getting 100%, so like that can kind of drive you in and of
But that's a
itself.
very nice reward, and I feel like it would
Yeah,
be cooler if they put some more of that in the games of like, okay, it's not just you get some bonus art, but like maybe you get like an extra cutscene, or like
yeah,
they've done the extra cutscene before, like if you get like an extra cutscene, not just a post credits one, or you get like extra dialogue or whatever it is, more stuff like that.
yeah.
um
I've kind of suggested before, like instead of like your 50th missile expansion, like maybe take a page out of like Axiom Verge's book and like instead of like a missile expansion, it's like a I don't know,
hmm,
a hidden collect like a book, for lack of a better word,
right,
that like you can
extra
read.
lore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that,
that'd be
which I
cool.
think would be cool.
Yeah.
So we're kind of on the topic of lore already. So obviously, the shadowy commander, who we really never do figure out what this guy's deal is. I think he's supposed to be that guy we saw in Metroid Other M, like the Metal Gear Solid looking guy at the end of the game. I'm not sure though. I hope one
Yeah,
day we figure out who that Shadow Man
I mean,
was.
apparently this is just some, you know, offshoot B.S.L thing. It isn't, or a Galactic Federation thing. Yeah, but that is a specific individual. It would be cool to find out who that is.
I agree. And it's the first time I mean, you might suspect that the Galactic Federation has ulterior motives here, but I think it's the first time if you're able to actually like get to there that it's like plain as day that there's something far more sinister than what maybe meets the eye here. Other than that, I feel like there's not really like a whole lot of different lore. We talked about the Serris bones, and just beyond like the actual structure itself, which is obviously a marine aquatic testing area in and of itself. So
Hmm.
there's not. I would say that there's not like a whole lot of like individual lore to the Metroid Fusion sectors because they mostly just tie into just the general ship as a whole. I don't know if you think that's fair or not, but
Um, I think in terms of lore, it's pretty like low. In terms of
yeah.
story, there's definitely some good storytelling here. So obviously this is the first. Yeah, well, you have like okay, this is the first time we're kind of really seeing them be a bit more shady, but you can also tell that this is the first time that, or one of the first times that they're really like, oh, there's something to this like X parasite thing. Like we can really use this.
Hmm.
At the beginning when you enter the area for the first time, Adam is like, like the X really seem to have a high degree of intelligence. Like these are seem to be like coordinated efforts by the SAX to intentionally damage the ship, because the SAX is creating a ruckus in Sector 4, which allows Serris to run wild and do additional damage. Adam, I think, specifically says that like a lot of the damage here is done by the SAX, but Serris is doing, helping out, right? Um, so there's that aspect of the story, and obviously your goal here is to take care of that and like
Yeah.
stop the Serris from destroying any more of the ship. Aside from that, obviously the Federation is breeding and like raising marine life for whatever reason, but it seems like to some extent they seem to be breeding some forms of life for the same reason they would breed the Metroids, for some kind of biological warfare, I would think,
Hmm.
because Serris exists right there, and Serris could be some big thing that they could use as like a weapon, a non-Metroid biological weapon, especially if it has speed booster, capabilities, because it seems through the Serris X that it has some natural speed booster, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that kind of thing is interesting, where there's that implication that the Federation is going more into just general biological warfare outside of experimenting with Metroids. So there's that. Um, and you know that they were working on potentially multiple Serris because there's a breeding tank, which I think
Right.
we see and Adam mentioned specifically. So we know that either that Serris was potentially not the first one, and there could have been more either on board or elsewhere. So you know that there was also that. So they're definitely getting up to. They're trying to really get as much juice for the squeeze as they can with this their experimental laboratorial like ship. Like they're not just experimenting on Metroids, they're experimenting on all different kinds of stuff to see what clicks, what works.
Hmm.
And I think that's a nice little like. I don't think that's really kind of before that. Like no one's really like if anyone's doing biological warfare, it was really basically like around Metroids or Phazon specifically, right? Like not just to necessarily. And then I guess Other M, I guess, kind of touches on this, but Other M is just copying Fusion. So, but I thought that aspect was interesting. So those are kind of the two main threads that are there. And also Adam mentions that Serris is a valuable specimen. So that's another kind of part that Serris
Hmm.
was clearly something they were trying to breed for, I would assume, biological warfare reasons.
It seems too like they were very interested in Serris because it had an ability that kind of mimicked one of Samus's own abilities with like the speed booster, which
Mm-hmm.
it kind of seems like over the course of this game, like you find out that like it seems like the Galactic Federation is very interested in almost building their own Samus, or like getting those abilities to create their own version of Samus, so they're
Well,
less
that's why
reliant
the
on her.
SAX is probably
Yeah.
so appealing to them, because like, look at this, we can breed, we can clone our own Samuses, right?
Hmm.
It's cloning itself. That's great. Like how like
And this one
they
doesn't
probably
talk back or think for itself, or
it doesn't talk back, doesn't think for itself, clones itself.
yeah.
Like they were probably like, wow, we hit the jackpot. This is great. So no wonder they wanted it so badly. And I'm sure they were already well on their way, like you said, to looking for ways to do that before the X Parasite kind of plopped on their lap. Though
Yeah.
it is interesting that like the Federation, I mean, I guess I don't know. Would the Federation have known about the X Parasites before all of this? Shouldn't they
I mean, it
now?
was implied no, because they. It kind of depends on how much time you think happens between Samus getting that surgery and then everything going wrong on the B.S.L. Because it doesn't seem like a lot of time passes. So then
Right.
maybe they only have like a small leadway, but they probably have at least a couple days to kind of figure out that the X are, a thing, and are could be utilized.
I'm not even talking. I'm just talking about the grand story of Metroid, right? Like the
Well,
Chozo created the Metroid specifically to deal with the X parasites, right?
yeah,
Like decades before, or even longer than the events of Fusion, correct?
yeah.
Do we also know that the Chozo and the Galactic Federation had communication with each other to an extent? correct? Somewhat,
Yeah,
kind of.
kind of,
Um,
sorta.
I don't know.
I guess it would
Doesn't
depend on this, like when the Chozo created the Metroids. Because if it was a long time ago, which I think it probably was, it makes sense that the Federation wouldn't have known about the X. And I guess it makes sense if you think that like they didn't know about the Metroids either until the Space Pirates took them from SR3D8. So
yeah.
that's interesting though. Like when did they know about the X and when did they realize its? I think like during the course of the events of Metroid Fusion is clearly when the Federation starts to like
Yeah.
really look at the potential of the X. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it. I guess if you
I
look at it that way, maybe they didn't know about them before.
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering is like obviously when Fusion was made, like 20 years ago when Fusion was made, I think at the time it's like no one knew about the X except the Chozo.
Right.
Um and the Federation and Samus were all learning about the X for the first time. Whereas now I'm thinking about it, now that we how everything has worked out and what we know, like, is there a chance that like would the Chozo have shared the information about the X at all with anyone? Maybe potentially the Federation. Like, I don't know. Would they have potentially have known earlier? I guess the answer is no, but just something I've thought about here.
I
Yeah.
think yeah. I think it probably. I think the answer is probably no because it's almost like the Metroids overshadowed the X. Like they knew that they made Metroids, but they didn't know why they made Metroids and why they were so important.
Yeah, I mean the
Um,
Metroids were also so effective at getting rid of the X
yeah,
that like they essentially became extinct until the Metroids were exterminated by Samus, which is why they were able to come back
yeah.
so hard, which so that makes sense. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some of the enemies in this sector
Yes.
that stick out. And there's a few, and I'm sure that we probably have a few of the same ones. But I want to start off with one that has always captivated me, and this enemy is
I kn-
called Evir. And
oh,
for
oh.
anyone that does not know what Evir is, it looks exactly like Dragon from Super Metroid, but small. And
Mhm.
it's probably just like a cute little callback to Super Metroid, but like in my brain, I'm always just like, man, were the Galactic Federation trying to like reverse engineer like a Dragon and like build a Dragon? Because it seems like they're trying to do a lot of other shady, shadowy stuff on this ship. Like,
Well, weren't those things in Super Metroid too?
yeah, they were like the little, like
Yeah.
basically like his the Dragon's little kids. So
Yeah, so like I almost feel like they somehow got
yeah,
a few
maybe.
of those and took them. Like that's I wonder how like some of these like how did some I'm assuming they bred obviously some of the subjects or like some of the creatures they have on the ship, but I wonder how many of them they just straight up like somehow took from Zevis somehow at one point or they just
I don't
used
know.
the DNA. Like how did they get them
I,
at all?
I was kind of
How did
I
they
was
get the
like
DNA?
I was like, is it like
Yeah.
Noah's Ark kind of thing here? Like they gathered them before they left, or is it like Jurassic Park where they have like little
Yeah.
samples of their DNA? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense. We know because in Other M, I'm assuming they all got it from whatever was on the Other M bottle ship because
Yeah,
that's what ends up happening for Ridley. But okay, how did they get it all from onto the bottle ship? I don't know. I don't think that,
you
and
got
we
me
don't see
there.
some of these things. We don't see Evers in Other M. I don't think so. That wouldn't be
Nope.
explained.
And
Um,
there's still a lot of potential for that story to be told. I think that could be kind of cool.
See, I think that's interesting though. I wish that wasn't explained. I wish me like, how did they get all this stuff off of Zevis if it
Hmm.
was blown up? Like, how do they do that? And I don't know. But
That
yeah,
that
those
would have
things are
made
cool.
a cool mission in a cool Federation Force game, but one that was cool, not one that was Metroid Prime Federation
Maybe in a
Force
Metroid game,
or that.
maybe
Yeah,
just a straight up Metroid game. Yeah.
yeah, or that. But I've always loved those enemies. Obviously, they remind me of Dragon. It's the closest Dragon's ever got to reappearing in a Metroid game. And they were tough. I always thought that they were pretty tough enemies. So they were the ones that stuck out to me, obviously. And then, of course, this is where you.
Don't do it.
Okay,
Don't steal
nope,
my
nope.
favorite.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, the Aqua Zabesians, the Aqua Pirates, the Aqua
Yeah.
Mermaid, the pirate mermaids. These I thought these were always funny and goofy, but like cool enemies. And you
Yeah.
have like these. You obviously have the Skullterra fish like flying
Yeah.
around or floating around, swimming around. And then you have these pirate X clones running amok, and they end up fusing together to create this like
Oh.
absurd enemy type. But I've always thought they were really cool. They're actually fun. They're fun to fight. Like they're aggressive. They'll aggro you and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
They are essentially Skullterra fish, but they look like the space pirates. It's literally they have like a little like tail and like claws. It's like, and it's like a literally mashing them together. I wish actually, because I think this concept is super cool. I wish they had done way more with that. I wish they had more enemy mashups using this concept of like
Hmm.
mixing two enemy types together, like mixing their DNA together using the X. They could have done that in the Fusion. They could have done it in Dread. In Dread, they just kind of like, oh, some of these enemies are also X. Like, okay, like that happened in Fusion. I would have
Hmm.
loved it. Would have loved it in one of these games, either Fusion or I think more appropriately Dread as the sequel, if they had really ran wild with this concept. I almost feel like they kind of forgot about it. Which understandable, I guess. It wasn't a major part of the game, but it's such a cool idea. If they just took all their enemy types and made it possible for like an X to come by and mash one or two or three of or two or three of them together and create a whole new enemy type, it would have been so cool. I mean, Dread had a lot of different cool, unique enemy types, fine, but like imagine it threw that into the mix. Like that would have been a really awesome evolution of this little tiny but really cool concept that Fusion had. And the Aqua Zabizzians, I think, were like the only ones in the game like this. I think maybe there's one other, but
There's the fish in Sector 4 too, which I was going to bring up too, like the little red fish. When you blast a couple of them, they merge together to create the blue fish, which
yeah,
is
the Skullterra.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That's what merges with the space pirate. Yeah, so you
yeah.
have that. You have
Those are
like
the
that
only
Pokemon
two
evolution.
I can really
I
think
wish there was
of.
more of that. I love
I
that
do
idea
too.
of enemy types like mixing together. I would love to see Metroid revisit that.
I really loved not even that, but just like there are some area. It might be even in I think it's in Sector 5 actually. But like when you have to shoot the X and you don't absorb them, and then they change into different enemies and they kind of influence the
Yes,
puzzle. Or I love that kind of
yes,
stuff. Like
yes.
when you freeze the one and you start speed boosting on top of it. Like I love that kind of stuff, and I'm hoping that in the eventual
It's
Metroid
such a good
Fusion
game.
remake that shows up in full form, because
Such a
it was
good
such a
game.
cool gameplay idea that
Mm-hmm.
didn't get like utilized, I don't think, to its fullest potential, but there's a lot of potential there to be really really cool.
100%.
So yeah, I agree. I can't remember what these enemies are called, but I figured another pretty prominent enemy that you see in Sector 4, and I think they're limited strictly to Sector 4, are the little puff guys, the little puff fellows that you need to freeze with your diffusion
Oh
missiles. Not the
my god.
best. These guys kind of
Hate these
annoying.
little guys.
Yeah,
Hate these little guys. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what they're called, the little balloon dudes, but yeah, definitely again memories of dealing with
yeah.
these little guys on my earliest playthroughs in the under bottom section, the fish tank section of this game, of this area of the game. Yeah.
Like actually you can run into them, I think, pretty quickly in this sector too, because they
Mm-hmm.
they block out we talked about how you go from right to left, but if once you go either one room or two rooms, you can actually dip at the bottom and then go back towards the right, but you can't progress because these stupid fish are blocking your path, and
Yeah.
you won't be able to progress for basically
Yeah.
almost until the end of the game. So ugh, those are annoying. And I don't know what the enemy is actually called, and it's not an enemy so much as it's more so an obstacle, but just like the little tendrils, they act as a blockade. The thing I was just talking about that you have to freeze in
They
Sector
like
5 to
grow like
run.
the sponge looking things.
Yeah. God, I'm sure they have a name that I am just
Because I
completely.
know I'm pretty sure those things are in other sectors too. The
They
most
are. Yeah.
memorable ones I remember is the ones that are in the Arctic section, and you have to freeze them,
Yeah.
and you run over them there. Yeah, I don't remember what those are called. The ones that stuck out for me, we already mentioned a good deal of them, but what I looked up what their names were and I couldn't find them. But the little ones, the little guys I mentioned earlier, the ones that the shell creatures that throw the fire flame like the flames at you. No idea what those things are called. Always think about those when I think of this area. I tried to look it up. I couldn't find what they were called. If anyone knows what they're called, please let me know. Write to me.
I
Um,
Oh no, never
couldn't find
mind.
a
I
name.
thought I had it. I found the name for the puff guys actually. So the puff guys are Powamps is their name.
Powamps.
Powamp.
Of course.
Yeah.
How can you forget the Powamp? The
I
classic Powamp.
I don't know. We just blew it, I
I
guess.
forgot.
I don't know what those
Yeah.
are called either. So yeah, let us know if you know what they are. But they're tough. That one room you mentioned, I always remember that room, and like the desperate
Yeah.
dash to get that expansion, because like it feels like you're under siege in that room, which I mean you
Well, I
kind of
always
are.
remember that one. I got all the way to the end. I got only an expansion. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
For all that, I got an expansion. Like, at least give me like a save station, or I mean, there's one over there. At least give me a cool room over the other side, or I don't know, an
Yeah.
upgrade.
Okay, well, let's talk about bosses, and I guess I
Or
shouldn't say
boss.
bosses because it's just boss, singular.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
one of the better bosses in the game, I would say. Serris is a very, very cool boss. It's kind of strange that we haven't really seen Serris come back because I think that a lot of people would
Has
be,
not come back.
yeah, I think a lot of people would be like very open to seeing Serris again.
I
Yeah,
love
fun
I love
fight.
Serris.
Yeah.
I love Serris X. Really cool boss fight. Not the hardest once you get the hang of it and the rhythm,
Hmm.
but really awesome. Yeah, it's the only boss fight in the area. There's this area and I think one other area in the game that only have a single boss. So it's one of
Yeah.
those. Has the speed booster, critical. So it's also a boss I don't think you're gonna skip on speed runs either because you want that speed booster.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I thought about it looking back on it is it's a really cool evolution of the bot wound fight from Super Metroid
Yeah.
because
Actually, it is. Yeah.
you have bot wound who's going in and out of those holes, so you kind of lose the visibility. But the difference in that one is that Samus can kind of just stand there. You can see every hole that bot wound's going to come out of at every time, like at all times. You have this like kind of like third person view of everywhere that bot wound's going to go, and he moves a lot slower. So then you kind of have Serris, who kind of amplifies all of that. Serris is moving hundreds of times faster, right? Like
Hmm.
just barreling around the room. And you also can't see Serris the entire time. Like Serris is off somewhere else in the arena, popping up on you at different angles where you can't necessarily see where he's coming from. And that kind of adds that element of surprise and like reaction time that's needed.
Hmm.
Eventually you get the pattern down. You can like quickly, stand in a place and turn and just like take the shots. One aspect of the fight I like, especially towards the beginning before you kind of get the hang of it, is like you kind of know you're gonna get hit and you kind of take those shots and like you trade with them. Like I'm gonna get as close as I possibly can to guarantee hitting you in the face, even if I get hit, which I really liked about it. I just love the high speed nature of it, but it's a nice
Hmm.
evolution from a similar boss fight coming into Super Metroid, amplified with higher speed, way more intense. Music is sick.
Yeah.
All of that looks awesome. It's a cool boss fight. I think it's one of the best 2D Metroid boss fights. I wish the Serris boss fight theme was in Smash Bros. Love this boss fight. It's not the hardest once you get the hang of it. Eventually, it just comes down to being in position and facing the right way. But it's
Hmm.
a nice, quick, like all out brawl that like goes 0 to 100 and is really cool. And it's kind of earlier in the game ish, so yeah, it's not something that like it's gonna like be a crazy test of your skill, but it like really ramps things up pretty early, and it's a lot of fun. So,
I
and it's a
agree.
cool boss looking. It's like an awesome like I don't know what that thing is,
The design,
snake
oh
thing.
yeah,
Yeah, it looks
it's like a
awesome.
big
So
eel or something. It looks very
yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So big fan, big fan.
Yeah, I agree. I've been critical of some elements of Metroid Fusion before, but I think an area that it like hits a home run is its boss fights. Like the bosses are so awesome in this game, and like Serris is no exception. He is. It's a super fun fight. I always actually I go down into the water and fight Serris on the bottom, which kind of
Crazy.
I don't know because he when you fight him, you can see like the three little bubbles where he'll pop out of. So if you time it right, you can pop him with a missile and you can kind of see where he goes. But of course, the drawback is that you don't have the gravity suit. So if like
Mhm.
if he's coming for you, you're gonna get hit. So it kind of adds a little extra danger to that fight for me too, which I really like. So yeah, a great fight. You touch on all of it. I wish there was another boss fight in Sector 4. I don't know which one
Mhm.
maybe you could have moved over here or which one would have even been appropriate, but yeah, like Serris, even if it's just Serris, like I think it's like a top boss fight in Metroid Fusion. I don't
Mhm.
I don't know that I would say it's the best one in Metroid Fusion, but I think that speaks to just the quality of all of the different boss fights in the game. Because like I said, they're all of them almost to a boss fight. Even like the storyline boss fights against Elephant Bird and like the scientist, like even those ones are really cool for what they're supposed to be. So it's just yeah, it's a collection of great bosses in this game, and Serris is no exception.
Yeah, Cyrus is definitely one of them. I also, if you fall into that water, dealing with the core X is definitely a pain.
That
You
yes,
got to be that. That is what I was more worried about. Not dealing with Cyrus, dealing with the core X. That was
yeah,
actually hard to land those jumps. In terms of another boss, I think actually putting a boss where the security door area is in the lower part,
yeah.
like just put a room right before that. I don't know what kind of boss it would be. I don't know, maybe a giant Skulltera or something, or a giant awkward Zebezian, something like that. Um, That could have been nice, but I was okay with that. I'm okay with not every sector being full of bosses.
Hmm.
I thought Serris being the main attraction was more than fine because you also had like the element of like the electrified water and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Maybe even
some
like an SAX encounter would have been cool before that. Not a boss
that would have been
necessarily, but yeah, something.
that would have been interesting, like seeing the SAX kind of like
Yeah.
swim and try to get to you, like a slow motion kind of like runaway chase scene. That would be cool. Yeah, I like that.
I'm assuming that the SAX has gravity
Well,
suit
I guess
capabilities, but I guess it's wearing the various suits, so
yeah,
maybe not.
yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it
that would
doesn't.
have been intense.
Mhm.
So yeah, lots of different items that you can get in here. By my count, we got 2 energy tanks, 9 missile expansions, 3 power bomb expansions, and of course the speed booster and the diffusion missiles. So nice little haul
Yes.
that you get from this area. Talking about music, you mentioned it earlier. The Serris boss theme is awesome. It's like it's
Sarah's boss theme
energetic.
is incredible.
It pumps you up. It's just like it's got that pulse to it that I feel like I really love. And for what it's worth, too, I think that not that this is completely saying a whole lot, but I think that in terms of like main sector themes, I think Sector 4 is probably my favorite. It's either Sector 4 or Sector 5, and I think it's probably Sector 4 because it has that like I don't know that energetic little like do 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 like I don't know I think it's cool.
Well, I love the Fusion soundtrack. It's so good. I know you're a hater of it, but the Fusion soundtrack is fantastic, and this is a prime, no pun intended, example of that. The both tracks, honestly, Sector 4 flawless across the board in terms of music. I think it's one of the just straight across the board best performing musically for the series in terms of a sector because you have that main theme which has this like investigative like 80s like synthy thriller kind of theme,
Do do
like
do
action like movie kind of
do do
vibes, like you're going on like
do
a mysterious adventure. Yeah. Do like
bum bum
like oh
bum.
it's so good. It's
Can you
so
imagine,
good.
they should have remade that for Berenia and Metroid Dread. That would have been cool.
Like
That would have been
list
good.
like yeah, like some of that stuff like that this going back and listening to this theme, I actually have it on right now. It's so good. And then it just keeps like building and like going to a different section. It's so I wish Doom was on here to tell me all of these things of how good it is, but
Yeah.
like the it's so this is what's so great about this one is that when you listen to this track, like literally I would love for all of you at this either when you're listening to this show right now or maybe afterward, go back and listen to it like on its own. Like go find the soundtrack on YouTube or something and just listen to all the different elements in this song, like all the like the layered like synths and instruments, whatever. But it doesn't feel like you're being bombarded like beaten down by all these different sounds. Like it all works together in like a nice cohesive harmony. Like it's perfect. It's so good. This theme is so good. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I think the Sector 4 main theme is one of the most underrated Metroid tracks in the entire series. And I think it's one of the best ones too. It's really good. It's really good.
Okay.
Really, really good. And I think the Serris boss theme to go back to that, which also is the Yakuza boss theme. So we got to give the
Hmm.
that boss also the credit. Wow. Fast paced, like matches it perfectly. Like it is they nailed it. They got the memo in terms of fitting a theme to the boss. And yeah, like I wish this theme made it to Smash Bros. I would make this the track every time I played in tournament.
Man, I would love to hear it not on the Game Boy Advance. You know, like it like remade or like remastered or something like it. Like if they've remade Fusion, like to hear that soundtrack with a better quality hardware, I think would be
Oh, I
awesome.
agree 100%. Yeah.
Because yeah,
But
this
it's still really good, man.
yeah.
It's still really good.
I mean, I don't love it quite as much as you, but it is like a really nice theme. Like I said, it's probably my favorite of the sectors. Maybe Sector 5 has kind of a cool stillness to it. I feel like that
Mhm.
I really like. But yeah, this one kind of gets you excited, gets some energy, gets you just kind of like peeking around the corner, like you don't know what kind of danger is coming at you. Like it's cool.
Fusion is so good at that. Fusion is always so good at that, like creating this like building intrigue of what's coming up around the corner, what's next. Like there's something bigger going on here. Let's figure it out. And down to just tonally, thematically, like even down to the music, nails it.
So let's talk about some of these expansions here in this sector here, which I'm glad to hear that you've been flexing your 100% muscle. So we
Well,
kind of
I
talked to.
didn't my this last playthrough, I will admit,
Uh,
because I didn't have a lot of time.
that's okay. That's okay. Not that you need a lot of time to go through it,
No,
but
but
so we talked about it earlier, but I want to talk about it just again, just quickly. But that was the first expansion that I thought of in this sector was the glass tube, and it's
mhm.
just a regular old missile expansion. But the proud tradition of power bombing a glass tube comes back, makes me smile every time you do it, and you drop down into this like little tank, the tank within a
Mhm.
tank, and there's like two Aqua Pirates. There's a bunch of fish. There's just like a ton of different enemies there, and it's like, oh god, and like you don't have the screw attack or anything like that, so you
Mhm.
kind of gotta act quickly before you get completely bombarded by enemies. This one always sticks out. Just like I said, I'm a sucker for that proud Metroid tradition. So immediately when we were talking about expansions, I thought of this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the ones that stick. I mean, the ones that stick out to me the most, I think I've already mentioned. I
Hmm.
think so. Like the one in the room with the flamethrower guys, and the one you just mentioned, like the tank drop down with the aqua pirate.
There is one
Yeah.
that I want to shout out that I think is really really fun actually, and it's right beside the level 4 lock door room where it's kind of like almost like a hidden passage that you have to go through in the room in the tunnel that's subsequently right beside it, and you got to go through, and there's a bunch of enemies that are sequestered in this little block, and they're
Mhm.
golden enemies, and you have
Mm.
to shoot them basically, or you have to shoot all the enemies until they turn into golden
Oh, the
enemies.
crabs.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
once you defeat the golden enemies, then finally the door unlocks. And I like that about Metroid Fusion too. It does it in a few different places that we
Yes.
kind of talked about earlier. Where like you have to defeat enemies, and then your first inclination is to absorb the X, but you have to not do that in order to actually get to the room that you want to go into. And this is one of the earlier examples of that, I think, in the game, even though it's like kind of hidden off. But I always really love that room. You get an energy tank from it, which is really cool. There's a pretty tricky shine spark section in this one too, as well. Not as tricky, obviously, as the hidden scene, but like you got to go through some of the coral rooms. I believe you need the screw attack in order to get rid of the big viney underwater reefy thing, and you have to shine spark straight up through an invisible section in the ceiling, and then you come across a power bomb once you get there. It's pretty cool, and like you need to be like fairly precise, and I really like those kind of expansions where it's just like you have to act like precisely, and you have to be very calculated with your shine sparks and with your movements in general in order to get the expansion that you want. So that one stuck out to me as well when I was thinking of expansions in this sector, and like just some of the like just some of the ones that you get along the way to the control pump room. Like I think that one of them that always stuck out to me again is like there's that one energy tank, but it's got like the rubble in front of it, so like you can't access it from the way that you normally would on the way to the
Yeah,
Serris
like
fight.
that steel beam
Yeah,
kind of bent over it. Yeah.
you kind of have to take like the back way in order to
Mhm.
get to it and go through a few tanks in order to get there. I've always thought that one was cool, and like just some of the hidden missile expansions, like up and above one of the rooms that's on the way to the pump room, I think are pretty cool. There's nothing like I don't think that there's any expansions in this area that are as crazy as some of the ones in say like Sector 6 or anything like that, but there's some like pretty fun ones here and like pretty decent like challenges that you need to accomplish in order to get them.
For sure. I don't have much to add on that, but I did want to go back real quick to the main items of the diffusion missile because this is the only game that it appears in
Mhm.
the entire series. We do get the diffusion beam in Dread and Other M, but it's not the same. It's not. It's like it's more based on the charge beam and not the ice beam or an ice missile.
Mhm.
But this to me was always one of my favorite items in Fusion. And you were talking about precision with these shine spark things. The fusion missile is great because you don't have to be precise at all. You just let that let that bad boy go against the wall and just let like the big freezing snowflake just
Yeah.
like take effect. And like those what were those things called, pampas or the balloon guys?
What did I
Pu-
say? They're
Pumpas.
Pompoos? I don't
Yeah,
know,
because
something like that.
you use your fusion missile to like freeze a bunch of those in place, like at distance, and I always remember that. So,
Powamps.
um,
Powamps. Yeah.
Poemps, yeah. So the fusion missile, one of my favorite items. I wish it came back. I think it was really, I liked in fusion. I thought it was really interesting how they kind of mixed the ice beam and ice missile together, and it was
Mm,
kind of, I think, a way for them to like get around Samus's ice weakness somehow. I think a little bit, and also just kind of like a clever way to like reintroduce. I don't know. It was
yeah.
cool. I liked the
I
fusion
like
missile.
that.
I wish it came back. And then also just something that when I was looking up some stuff real quick before the show, I actually learned that the speed booster in both Fusion and Zero Mission has a second slower startup time than it does in Super Metroid. Apparently, Super Metroid's speed booster startup time is a second,
Hmm.
while for Zero Mission and Fusion, um, it is 2 seconds.
Hmm.
So I learned that. Other M's is I think over 5 seconds it takes for it to start up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember Other M being kind of slow. You know, I know that there's ways, and I've tried to do mostly in Super Metroid, never in Fusion or Zero Mission, but like to short charge your speed booster, and like it's a big
Yes,
speed
well,
running thing.
it's a big
And
thing in Super Metroid. I know that because that's I
oh
think what you have to do the ocean fly skip. You have
yeah,
to do a short charge there.
I,
Yeah.
I remember trying for like an hour one night, like in that little criteria section by the wreck ship to get
Yep.
it going
Yep.
on, and I don't know how these guys do that, but it takes a lot of skill in
It
order to
does.
do that.
It's a lot of fun to
Um,
watch.
so yeah, I don't really know of any like super crazy glitches that exist in Sector 4 aside from the hidden scene, which isn't a glitch. It's just you have to be really, really, really good in
Yeah,
order
it's an
to do
Easter
that.
egg. It's not
Yeah.
a glitch or anything.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty much our report on Sector 4. An underrated. I think when we started this show, I had a more of a, I guess, a lesser opinion of the sectors in Metroid Fusion because they're bite sized, they're smaller sectors, most of them, and I think I've kind of shed away a little bit of that as we've done this show and as it has went on, and I had a chance to do a Metroid Fusion guide and had a chance to play just like a lot more Metroid Fusion. It took me a while, but I think I do have a more of an appreciation for these for and not just for sector 4 but like almost for all of these sectors and how they kind of intertwine together to make like one really really strong, really atmospheric, really potent area. So but in terms of like the individuality, I think sector 4 is like a really really strong sector, lots going for it, good music, cool items, great boss fight, and cool enemies. So I mean, like, if it's not my favorite sector, it's high up there, I'll say that.
Definitely took the words right out of my mouth. It's really has so many cool aspects to it that I think just make it really fun to be in. It's it has the cool music, has the cool enemies to fight against, has cool items you get, awesome boss fight, and it's a fun twist and a layered twist, like a diverse area on like your classic water area in a video game, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not just the water area. It's I'll like a marine tank maintenance lab area. It's the electrified water area that gets drained. It's the actual fish tank itself. Like it has some cool elements to it. Yeah, I think for Fusion, you look at it as maybe just one big kind of map almost that's so intertwined. And even an area like this, they give you a way to come back in and delve into it in a whole new way and uncover and peel back those layers yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And just like it works really well in the rest of the game, it works really well here in Sector 4. I will say again, I think some of the best music in the series, period, in Sector 4. I love the music in this. Like, it just hearing it takes me back to playing this game in the Game Boy Advance, like as a kid. Yeah, incredible area. I always love diving into fusion areas. It's really cool because I don't mind a game doing like the classic, oh, the grassy area, the fire
Yeah.
volcano area, if it makes sense and they do interesting things with it. And this game does that. It's not only a unique and interesting area, but the story reasons for why it is how it is make sense and are interesting and compelling. So I'm glad we were able to jump back into this. Always love jumping back into Fusion. Still my favorite 2D Metroid of all time. And yeah, if you haven't played Fusion, check it out. If you have played Fusion, go jump back
Check it
in,
out.
dive back in,
There you
dive
go.
back in. And yeah, let us know what do you think about this section. Is it one of your favorites? Is it one that you don't think is one of your favorites? Do you love the music as much as we do? Do you love the bosses? What do you think about it? Let us know. Love to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts.
Let us know over on Discord. And I will say this as my parting thought to Sector 4. I think a lot of times in games, at least for me, you get to the water area and you're just like,
Mm.
oh god, here we go. And I never feel that with
Mm.
Metroid Fusion in Sector 4. Like
Yeah,
I always look forward to it
I look
actually quite a
forward to
lot.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah,
So for what that's worth, I think it does a really
that
good job
says a
of that.
lot.
Yeah.
That says a lot. Yeah.
So yeah, let us know what you think about Sector 4. Check us out over on Discord. Join us. We're talking Metroid all the time. We even had this sector debate not that long ago. My answer changes every day, so you could probably influence me with which sector is the best, which one
Have
is.
we ranked? Have we done a definitive sector ranking
I
in Fusion?
I don't know. Maybe that should
Maybe
be
we have to
something.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that might have to be on the docket coming up there. But
Mhm.
I feel like my answer would be like completely different if we did it like 2 weeks later or a month later. But I guess that's part of the joy of doing those. So yeah, let us know. And let us know over on Twitter too, at Omega Metroid Pod. Check us out too. I'm at Spiteri316. Dak is at DakCity _. All right. Well, we are going to get out of here. Make sure to check out OmegaMetroid.com if you're playing Metroid Fusion. All kinds of walkthroughs, guides, boss items, everything. Check it out. And as well, if you want to take your enjoyment of Omega Metroid to the next level, check us out over on Patreon. We got a couple new series we got going on there. We made our we had a great episode on the Super Mario Bros. Movie. That was fun.
Yes, that was a good one. Yes, we got our movie chatter in,
Yes,
which was
it
great.
was. It was a lot. It's worth the price. I'll tell you that right now. It was a good show. So yeah, and of course, check us out wherever you get your podcast. Like and subscribe. If you got a Metroid fan in your life and they don't know about this podcast, tell them where they can go and get their weekly Metroid fix. That, my friends, is going to do it for us. We will be back here next week. So until then, everybody, take care.